views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, and welcome to Open BxRx Tuesday on BronxNet, a weekly program providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually. I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne. Coming up, a lifeline many renters were relying on during the pandemic has ended. A tenant advocate joined me to discuss a new effort to support renters. Will renters facing eviction have access to free legal services? In the age of technology, the addition of smart guns could be on the market. President and CEO of LodeStar joins me for discussion on the new product. Will smart guns lessen the divide between those who are for or against gun control? After that, a multi-platinum producer and Bronx native with a mission to motivate kids in his borough joined me to discuss his new book titled The Story of Amadeus and the Beat Goes On. Despite limited resources, is there a way adults can better strengthen art and creativity for Bronx youth? And in honor of National Mentoring Month, two people will speak on the importance of building long-lasting relationships with those in need. Do young men and boys need strong male figures in their life to succeed? So please stick around. Open BxRx Tuesday starts now. Welcome to Open BxRx Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. A lifeline many renters were relying on during this pandemic has ended. New York State's eviction moratorium expired January 15th, leaving thousands of tenants facing possible evictions. Tenant advocates are now pushing lawmakers to pass the Good Cause Eviction Bill. Joining me to discuss this is Andrea Shapiro of the Met Council on Housing. Andrea, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So for those who don't know, can you explain the terms of the previous eviction moratorium and why was it helpful to those struggling?
Sure. So the eviction moratorium that just expired covered tenants who faced hardship related to COVID by filling out a hardship declaration. And this lasted from January of last year to January of this year. And it protected hundreds of thousands of tenants from eviction by filling out a simple declaration saying that they had lost income due to COVID, it was hard for them to move because of COVID, or they had increased expenses.
Now, to clarify, the moratorium paused rent, or is it that, that rent would be owed eventually?
Moratorium had no effect on rent. It simply said that you couldn't be evicted from your apartment or be brought to court. You still owed rent throughout that entire period.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting because that was something that I wasn't too clear on. So I'm so happy that you clarified that. Now that the eviction moratorium is over, what does that mean for renters? And are landlords now just allowed to evict them for any reason?
Sure. So tenants always have protections in New York State. So your landlord can't simply give you a notice to leave and change your lock. You have to go through court. If you've applied for the Emergency Rental Assistance Protection, ERAP, that comes with eviction protection. Your landlord can start filing cases in court or can continue with cases that have already been in court. But you still might have defenses, such as the Tenant Safe Harbor Act, which says you can't be evicted for rent owed during this period. Or you might have other defenses around bad conditions in your apartment. So it's really important that no one should just give up on their apartment and leave. There's lawyers available for you and there's defenses available for you.
So I'm so happy you brought that up because that leads into my next question just about, the housing courts. They have been reopened and people are already entering the courts. And as evictions are expected to rise, more people will now have to go through this process. Will they have access to free legal representation? And are there any qualifications for that?
Sure. In New York City, we have a right to counsel or universal access in our housing courts. which means there is a lawyer available for you. It's particularly focused on people who are 200% or under of the federal poverty line. But no tenant should assume that they won't get a lawyer. There's lots of ways for everyone to get a lawyer. So please, when you go to housing court, the first thing you'll see is someone asking you for your name and where you live to figure out if you're there on your list to be able to get a lawyer. And if you're not getting one that way, call 311 and ask for a tenant lawyer. There are tenant lawyers for everyone going to court right now, and they're there to defend you and fight back against your landlord.
Now, I'm curious to know, will the influx of all these cases affect an individual awaiting eviction?
So the court is going to be slowed down, right? There's a lot of cases, and so things are going to move very slowly. And in general, there's lots of ways to protect against eviction, which slows down eviction cases. But it's really important that if a tenant gets a notice, that they act on it. They don't assume, oh, this is going to take forever. They need to do something as soon as they get the notice, because there are time periods for everything to happen within.
So now that we went over all of that, in an effort to combat this, advocates are calling for the good cause eviction bill. Can you tell me more about this effort?
Sure. What good cause eviction says is that unregulated tenants should have the right to stay in their apartment unless they've done something that violated the term of their lease or were a nuisance to other tenants or haven't paid their rent. It also says that landlords need to justify undue rent increases. So landlords can still raise the rent as much as they want, but they need a reason for more than 3% or more than 1.5% of inflation, whichever is less. And so it gives unregulated tenants a lot more rights and means that landlords simply can't get rid of you because they want to raise the rent or they don't want you anymore. And that often means that tenants who make complaints, try and get heat in the winter, find themselves in the spring without a lease and needing to leave. And so this would give universal protections to unregulated tenants, and regulated tenants already have these rights.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the rent increases and why is that super important in this situation?
Sure. So one of the ways that landlords get tenants out is by simply raising the rent. We hear this all the time. My landlord's raising my rent 200%, 100%, several $100s. And they're doing this because tenants have complained in the past because they think they can get away with it. And they're not doing improvements to the buildings. They're not fixing things. They're not using the money to invest in the building at all. And so saying that a rent increase more than 3% or 1.5% of the consumer price index is unreasonable unless you have a reason, right? So landlords were going to have to be in court and open their books and show, yes, I'm, redoing the roof, or, we had a huge leak and so I've had increased repairs. So it doesn't actually cap rent. It actually says landlords just need to prove things now.
So, according to citylimits.org, Albany and Hudson have actually passed their own versions of good cause protections, but state law prohibits New York City from doing the same. Why is New York City stalling on this?
So New York City passed a resolution saying that they were in favor of good cause, but due to something called the Erstat laws, New York does not have home rule. And so when it comes to issues of certain issues around rent, we're prohibited by the state from the 70s to make these laws ourselves. So we passed a resolution saying we're pro this. Unfortunately, the state's stalling on this. And we have a lot of legislators from upstate who are landlords themselves who don't want to pass this bill. There are a lot of electeds in New York City who are landlords or view themselves as siding with small landlords and aren't passing this bill, don't want to pass this bill, rather than listening to them 5 million tenants who will benefit from this bill. They're listening to a small minority of people.
Now, I really want to know, how soon will we need this bill passed? And if this goes undone, are we on the brink of an eviction crisis?
We needed this bill passed on January 15th. The sooner it gets passed, the better, because it would start working day one. And New York City is been in an eviction crisis, right? We all know that. We all know people who've been evicted who are behind on rent. And COVID has just made that worse. And we're going to see homelessness numbers rise. We're going to see people being evicted. We're going to see the courts slow down because they have so many cases. But we don't have to. We don't have to have people being evicted. That's not a normal thing. We need people to stay in their homes. It's good for all of us when people aren't being evicted. It means kids can stay in school. It means that families aren't doubling and tripling up, which has led to COVID surges. It means that people are staying out of shelters. And all of that is good for New York, whether you're a renter or not.
So, will this largely contribute to the issue of homelessness that we're already seeing in our city?
Yes, the number one reason why people are homeless is because of evictions. Often we view homelessness as being a moral failing or around drug or mental health issues. But the number one reason why people are not in apartments is because they've lost their apartments. And they're doubling and tripling up. They're going into hotel rooms. They're leaving the city. All of those are going to increase.
No. I'm so happy that you mentioned that because I do think, like, as a society, we tend to think of those things that you mentioned. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Describing it as very restrictive, many landlords are actually against this bill. And I'm curious to know how this bill affects landlords, if at all. And I really like that you mentioned that a lot of the money doesn't go towards the building because that is what I thought it was for. So I really want to know what you have to say about that.
Sure. Landlords don't like this bill because it means the tenants will be able to make complaints and the landlord will have to listen. Right now, as an unregulated tenant, if you make a complaint, your landlord can not renew your lease, can increase your rent to get you out. And so a lot of tenants are terrified to make a complaint, and that leads to disasters, as we've recently seen, especially in the Bronx, right? Especially while, it's 20, 30 degrees outside, tenants are freezing in their apartment, and they continue to freeze because they don't have the right to make a complaint without being scared of their landlord. And that's the number one reason why we need good cause, is that it gives tenants those basic protections so that they can say when something's wrong, and they can actually improve our housing stock and the quality of our housing by being able to get complaints listened to.
I want to thank you so much for joining us. Can you let people know where they can go just to learn more about if they're facing eviction or to stay up to date with your organization?
Sure. Our website is metcouncilonhousing.org. You can also get some information off our Instagram, which is at met_council. And we have a hotline that is running 3 days a week at 212-979-0611.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet. We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at bronxnet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Welcome back. The topic of gun violence remains one of the most debated issues in our country. However, in the age of technology, we may see a new product that could possibly eliminate some of those gun related issues. Joining me to discuss smart guns is President and CEO of LodeStar, Gareth Glasser. Gareth, thank you for joining me.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So this product has been on the radar for some time now, but we may actually see this become available to the United States. Can you please explain what smart guns are and how they work?
Yes. So what we like to say is instead of putting your gun in a safe, we like to put the safe in the gun. Smart guns use authentication technology such as fingerprint, pin pad, or even smartphone connectivity to lock and unlock your firearm. And so there's a little technology inside the gun that responds to authentication and will lock and unlock the gun only for people who are authorized to use it.
Okay, so I also have another question. Is it like it's just that one person that can use it? So it's not like you could have multiple fingerprints or anything like that, just for that one person?
Oh, no, actually you can. Right now we've got it so where you can have anywhere from 4 to 6 people enter their fingerprint for the fingerprint sensor. The pin pad is coded and you pick the code for that. And via your smartphone, that's pretty much going to be you since it's since it's your phone.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Now, I understand that the idea for this model actually stems from a really sad reality that we hear often. Can you just further explain what inspired you to really invest time into this?
Well, sure. So I was busy with my corporate career living in Texas at the time. And a friend of mine, a colleague, her son was at a family picnic. He was 10 years old and he shot himself with a loaded shotgun that was left in the house. And these kinds of accidents happen all the time. It is a little bit of hyperbole attached to it, although what I have found out subsequently is on average 8 firearm incidents occur every day in the house. And children anywhere from the age of 0 to 17 are the ones being shot. Maybe 3 die. So that's 1,000 deaths a year, 2,500 in total injuries. The other thing, simultaneously, I was volunteering as a ski instructor at the Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center, which you use skiing as a way to help folks with disabilities gain their confidence back. A large number of my customers, in fact, most of them were disabled vets who had been shot in one way or another, and I saw the devastating effect of gun injury to them. So I decided to do something about it and went back and actually started doing some research to see, is there a non-political solution to this? And I settled on technology as the way to go.
Nice. So, according to an article from Reuters, you admitted that there could be some challenges with getting the gun out there. Can you just explain what some of those challenges are?
Sure. So I think the primary challenge, first off, is that there is a reluctance among people to trust in new technology. Now, it's not that this technology is new per se, because these authentication methods have been around for a decade, and they're very reliable. But there is a certain mistrust of technology when it's first introduced to a product, such as airbags in cars, for example, which have proven to be the most effective in reducing fatalities in automobiles. But it took a long time for people to trust that they worked. So I think that's the first obstacle, is just overcoming that mistrust. The second is probably the fear that the government will mandate smart guns. We are very much against that. We feel that whenever you try to mandate anything, and just, for example, let alone look at vaccines or masks or you name it, pretty much, people don't respond well to mandates. They don't like things being forced upon them. And I think in this particular case with firearms, the whole Second Amendment issue becomes, front and center. So that's an obstacle, and we're hoping to avoid it by remaining steadfast that we are against mandates.
Now, You talked a little bit about like politics. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I feel like the whole situation with guns is just, I feel like whether you want it to be or not, it is very political. So as I mentioned previously, we're constantly having this debate about gun violence. Do you feel that smart guns could actually lessen the divide between those who are pro guns and those who are anti-gun?
You know, I really do. The reason I actually settled on a technology solution is because it's the least political when compared to, say, gun control legislation or arguing in court over different legal approaches to try to outlaw certain types of firearms or ammunition. I mean, those automatically put people on either side of the argument, and that kind of controversy is less apparent when you have technology. At least the technology says we're not trying to prevent gun ownership. In fact, our customers will be gun owners. What we're trying to do is make the guns better and safer. And these guns, not only will they be safer, but they're going to have a lot of pretty cool features that I think gun owners are really going to like.
So we could kind of find a little bit of common ground, or that's what you're hoping for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just bring this into it. I'm from New York City, specifically the Bronx, and we have a lot of stories about, senseless killings in regards to guns. According to NYC.gov, gun violence is down 4.4%, which is a good thing. But do you think the addition of smart guns could possibly further decrease that number?
Well, I do. I guess the primary, other than the accidents I spoke about before in the home, say with young people, teenagers taking their family or their parents' gun to school and doing some harm with it, teenage suicide, which, by the way, is a real problem, and teenagers who kill themselves with guns are doing so without it's not their gun because they can't even legally own a handgun in most states under the age of 21. So the point there is all those are pretty clear and examples of where we could save lives. But in terms of the use of guns illegally, so whether the guns are stolen or illegally obtained, they are used in gun crime some 85% of the time. So the whole notion would be our firearms, if they are stolen from, say, a car, and the person who steals the gun runs off to do some violence with it right away or to rob a liquor store or something, those incidents will be prevented. That our gun can't be fired by someone who just steals it off out of a car or out of your house. So I think that will have an impact. It's going to take a while because our firearms need to enter the market. We're hoping actually to partner with the major brands in developing smart versions of their firearms, and I think that'll really increase it.
Now, do you think we could possibly see policy changes in favor of smart guns? Because I think, like, thinking back to New York City, in order for them to have the most impact, I think that they would have to become the standard gun. So is that something that you would actually like to see?
No. I know it sounds counterintuitive. I mentioned it earlier.
Right.
To the extent you try to mandate or change change the market that way to where now you're mandating people buy this type of gun. That's been tried. The state of New Jersey tried to do that. They passed a law back in 2003, and for the better part of the next 15 years, that law prevented smart guns from happening. Mostly because everyone else around the country goes, "Whoa, that's jeopardizes my ownership of my traditional guns." And that's not something we advocate at all. So I think it would be most effective if we were allowed to just prove that there's a market for these types of firearms. They're safer. And eventually, people will buy them if they want to, and especially if they have young kids at home and they're buying it primarily for home defense. It makes sense to have a firearm like this. Human beings are just human. So we make mistakes, accidents happen, no matter how safe we really are trying to be. Look at your car. We're all safe. We try to be safe on the road. We're good drivers. And then guess what? We have accidents. That's just human nature. It's not something you can fix.
Well, right now there are plans to have smart guns available in the US sometime next year. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we hit the supply chain issues like you hear about all the time now. We already lost a couple of months in terms of our prototype development. But now that we're ready to go to the next phase, which is to create our minimum product, we have to actually source significant materials and equipment. Normally that would take 4 months. We've been told now it could take as long as 8. And then once we have all that ready and we are making our first small batches of product, we need to have them tested. So instead of like 5 months, it's going to be maybe the remainder of this year until we can actually get out of testing. That at that point, hopefully we are starting to manufacture. So I'm thinking the spring of 2023 is a realistic projection for that.
All right. Well, Gareth, thank you so much for joining me to speak about this. I really appreciate it. Can you quickly just let everyone know how they can stay up to date?
Sure. Well, thanks very much. Yes. So you can visit our website at lodestarworks.com. And on that website, if you click on a button, we'll keep you up to date. There's also links to our social media pages, because who doesn't have those these days? So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we have all of them.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday. Welcome back. I have a story about a man who is using his personal experience to inspire the lives of children in areas like the Bronx. When he's not producing hits for artists like Justin Bieber, 50 Cent, and Jennifer Lopez, multi-platinum producer Amadeus is motivating kids in his borough. And today he joins me to discuss his new book titled The Story of Amadeus and the Beat Goes On. Amadeus, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Queen. What an amazing introduction. You were so amazing. You were so proper. You know what I mean? It's just an amazing introduction. I really appreciate you having me here today. Congrats on everything. Happy New Year to you.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. Thank you. But thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. Thank you for being here. So you've been on BronxNet Productions so many times. It's almost like you're kind of a part of the family. But for those who don't know, can you tell us a bit more about your background and where it's taken you?
Yes. So I've been a multi-platinum producer that's produced for over 100 artists. You name a few. Trey Songz is music director, tour drummer for the last 14 years. I have a residency in Las Vegas at the #1 hip hop nightclub in Las Vegas, Dre's nightclub. I've been at this for 20 plus years, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I'm from the Bronx. Bronx is in the building, 169th Washington Avenue to be exact, building 1309 4C. You know what I'm saying? So I've been at this for a long time, and I know the struggles. I know the challenges of being from the Bronx and being from any hood or any tough neighborhood. But I chased my dreams. I'm living my dreams today. And I always have been one to want to pay it forward and make sure that I encourage others, especially where I'm from in the Bronx, to believe in yourself and be great. Like, you don't have to be a statistic. You don't have to be what people say that you should be because of where you're from and your surroundings, but you can break the curse, and become successful and walk in your greatness. And I'm grateful to be able to represent that.
So I love that you gave us that little bit of tidbit about you, because as I mentioned, you have a new book where readers get to learn even more about you and your journey. Can you start off by telling us what inspired you to make a book?
Throughout the years, I would tour the world with Trey songs, and I would always stop in different cities, and I would say, hey, what school is surrounding whatever arena or city that we're playing in that night? And I will, try to make my way into that school to speak to whatever kids I was able to speak to. And again, to just, encourage them to chase their dreams and live their dreams, share my story, share the hardships, share all of that I've been through in life, to kind of encourage them to keep pressing on no matter what. So it just made a lot of sense. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and it just made a lot of sense to have something tangible that even after you leave from speaking to individuals and kids and students, that you can give them something to walk away with. And that was the book. It was something that I've always wanted to do, just didn't really have the time and the patience to really get it done. But, unfortunately, since the pandemic happened and I wasn't able to tour and go on the road and perform and get into the studio, I had to stay home. I think it was the perfect time for me to really, get the book together. And we was able to do that. Sometimes you got to be able to turn pain and challenge and struggle into something beautiful. So, the book came about, during the pandemic.
So you do have this book, and it is a children's book, and I would say even teenagers could read this. Can you just explain again, like, why that was really important to you to kind of focus on our youth?
Absolutely. It sucks when you feel like people don't care. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to scold. It's easy to get after, talk negatively to a kid and bring them down. But it's so much better when you can, look at them with their flaws and love them through their flaws and say, hey, it's okay. You do have a second chance. You do have a third chance. You do have a fourth chance. It's up to you to keep pushing in a positive way and not throw in a towel and give up, and end up dead or end up in jail or somewhere that you don't want to be. So I think it's just important to just encourage them and tell them, like, listen, I'm where I'm at today. It took me 20 plus years to get there, but it was very hard. It was very difficult. And like you said, it's not just for, kids. Like, there's adults that, humbly speaking, that are fans of what I've done musically and creatively, that want to know the story too. They want to know the hidden gems and how it started for me when I picked up the drumsticks for the fourth time in fourth grade, and the cereal that I used to eat growing up, and the music that my mom and dad played. I think it's very interesting for people to kind of know your story, and they want to know your story. So again, it's not just for kids or students or children. It's for anyone, and for adults too. Sometimes as an adult, you feel like once you reach a certain age that it's over. Like, you can no longer live your dreams. It's too late. And it's like, nah, if you woke up today and you got breath in your body and God blessed you with life, and she's already blessed you with gifts and talents, you just got to walk in that. And I always say this all the time. It's not our time or when we feel it's the right moment for it to happen. I always say it's God's time. So whatever you believe in, whatever your faith is, just hold on to that and keep pushing regardless.
Now, I think it's very crucial to note that you specifically wanted to influence, you said adults as well, but Black children, as well as just kids from urban areas. I saw that on your Instagram, and I thought that was really amazing. Can you speak more about why you wanted to make that distinction? Like, this is something to inspire children from the hood, or, Black children anywhere.
Right. It's who I am, and it's what I represent. And oftentimes us as Black kids, especially, Black men, we just get this dark cloud over us. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, a lot of us are getting killed by police. A lot of us, are joining gangs and doing the wrong thing. And when you look at a Black kid or a Black man, not everybody, but oftentimes, you kind of like, take a little step back, or you kind of, judge that person. I feel it all the time. I travel a lot. gratefully to travel a lot in first class. And, when I go to my seat and I'm sitting next to everybody else and they're like, what is he doing here? And it's like, I'm here because I belong here as well as you. Just because I don't look like you, I don't have the same skin tone as you, doesn't mean that I belong in the back of the plane. I'm in the front of the plane. Why? Because, I'm doing the right thing. Why? Because I represent positive energy. Why? Because I'm an incredible musician that worked my behind off for years to get to where I'm at today. So yes, I'm going to sit here in first class. I'm not a businessman. I don't work for corporate. I work for me. I'm the CEO of Platinum Button Music. You know what I'm saying? So, I want people, when they see Black men, to be encouraged, to be inspired, to be blown away, to be impressed. Like, wow, you can do it too. Absolutely. God has blessed every single person on this earth with gifts and talents, no matter what you are, white, Black, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. We are all blessed by God. We are all one. We are all the same.
And I love that we're kind of having this conversation during Black History Month. And I think it also speaks to why, like you mentioned, it was important for adults to know that, because I think kids dream, but adults also dream, and we have things that we want to, achieve. So can you just speak to like why it's important to have this specific conversation for Black men, for Black women, or, people who come from certain backgrounds during Black History Month?
Right. I think, well, first off, it's wonderful, to have this conversation on today, which is the start of the Black History Month. It's a very powerful moment. We just celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King. And I was just so grateful for him because of his sacrifices and the fight that he fought for us, we're able to live our dreams. We're able, as I just mentioned, to sit in first class in front of the plane. We can sit in front of the bus, on a train. We can drive our own vehicles. We can own property. We can own businesses. If he didn't fight that fight, we wouldn't have been able to do what we do today. So be appreciative that you're able to live and actually go after and live your dreams. You know what I'm saying? Martin Luther King fought for us to live our dreams. So it's like you do him a disservice, and more importantly, and no disrespect to MLK, but you do God a disservice. It's like, he didn't have to bless you with these gifts. He didn't have to bless you with these talents. So how dare you have these gifts and talents and not use them? And how do you not live and walk in your passion? So, as today is the first day of the Black History Month, man, hopefully this interview and this conversation will inspire everybody that views it to just believe in themselves and go after each and everything God has placed, in them in regards to gifts and talents.
Now, I really want to touch on the fact that you said you came from a low-income community in the Bronx, and I think it really speaks to where you went today. We often feel that we don't have the resources to cultivate creativity in our youth, and you said that music was a huge part of your youth growing up, and sometimes it can be true that parents don't have the resources. How do we provide a space where we allow Black and brown children, or just children from low-income areas, to just dream and achieve what they want?
What I didn't have growing up was the internet, and social media. Like, none of that existed back then. So I had to kind of create something out of nothing, literally. I had to stand in front of the record labels and try to hope to meet individuals that can help, me live my dreams and allow me to walk through those doors for me to live my dreams. So nowadays, everything is right at your fingertips, where you can go online, you can get on social media, express yourself, share your gifts and talents, show the world what you're capable of doing, being seen by millions and billions of people around the world. So there's so much opportunity and so much ways to be seen. And it's just about understanding that and not being lazy. People expect success to just fall in their laps, and it doesn't work like that. Even though God is, and these are my beliefs, right? So even though God has blessed me with my gifts and talents, that doesn't mean I sit back, kick my feet up, wake up every day and do nothing and just hope that the doors go swinging open. It's like, nah, he gave us the gifts. Now we have to do our part, So I just think it's very important. I know a lot of the schools are missing music and missing, that entertainment side. And we need that, we need that. And I'm sure it's a big fight for DOE and whatever, people that are on the board to maintain music in school and to keep music in school. But you do have amazing schools around, especially in the Bronx, my city. I want to give a shout out to Principal Luis Torres at PS 55, who is actually in the process of building a recording studio right now in the school alongside, the legends, Grandmaster Melly Mel and Grandmaster Cass, along with Melissa LeBron from Windows of Hip Hop. So you have individuals like that are fighting to keep music and keep people's hopes and dreams alive. So we just need more than that. We need more of that, more of support, more people like myself walking to these schools and saying, hey, you can do it too. They need the time, they need the attention, and they need people like myself to push them into their greatness.
So this was a really inspirational story. I'm so happy you shared this with us. Can you just let everybody know where they can support you and your book?
Yes, I have it right here. I'm actually signing all copies of the book. So my hand is getting a little tired. I'm gonna keep it going as long as I can keep it going. So you can reach me on Instagram. It's Amadeus PBM. IG is Amadeus PBM. I have a website, which is www.imkingamadeus.com. I'm on Twitter as well under Producer Amadeus. I'm on Facebook under Antoine Amadeus Thompson. You can find me anywhere, Google, whatever you need to do, you can reach me. But if you're trying to get the book, either message me on one of those social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or go to the website and order your book and get your signed copy now. Queen, thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to share with my Bronx family. This was an amazing conversation. I'm proud of you. Keep up the great work. Keep being credible. You and your entire team are awesome. Much love, the Bronx, and always.
Amadeus, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.
If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Franchesca.
Welcome back. In honor of National Mentoring Month, our next guest will speak on the importance of building long lasting relationships with those in need. On behalf of Tuesday's Children, Bronx native and mentor Brian Harrison, along with Brad Walls, joins me to discuss or speak on the importance of mentorship that changed both of their lives. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So, I really like to know how each of you actually got involved with this mentorship program. Brian, we'll start with you. Why did you want to become a mentor?
Well, originally, I had grown up without a dad myself, and I was doing some volunteer service with a group called Literacy Partners, and one of the people running the operation mentioned to me that she thought I'd be a good fit to be a mentor to a young man. And I did some investigating and came upon Tuesday's Children, and away we went.
And Brad, can you tell us about your story and how you were actually introduced to this program?
Yeah, so I lost a father on 9/11, so I got involved with Tuesday's Children as a child. It entailed like a lot of events. Got super involved with a lot of organizations. Like I would go to events at Shea Stadium with the Mets or Giant Stadium when I was a kid, or do volunteer events or whatever. Take your child to work day. I actually went to MTV once, so there was a lot of cool stuff, and it just provided a community of people who lost people on 9/11. And I got involved with the mentorship program when I was about 8 years old, I believe, when Brian was introduced to me. My mom wanted me to get involved and have a male role model in my life. So that's originally how I got involved.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. 8 years old, that's like so young.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited you're here to kind of talk about that experience. As you
Yeah.
both mentioned, this was through Tuesday's Children. Brian, can you tell us a little bit more about the organization's overall mission to help kids?
Well, basically, the organization it finds mentors for children, boys and girls, who have been affected by terrorism, acts of terrorism, military conflict, or acts of violence in society. And they're a great nonprofit organization that is truly about caring about somebody else.
Now, you were both matched to be mentor and mentee. Can you explain what that process was like?
I think Brian's probably gonna have to speak on that. I was kind of young, so.
Well, there was a serious vetting involved that I had to go through initially, and but it was so well worth it in the end. Originally, I came down for an interview. I think I came back again. I supplied some information, and then I was called back by the organization about my interest in about mentoring Bradley in Westchester County. At the time, I'm a Bronx boy, born and bred. At that time, I lived in the Throgs Neck area of the Bronx, and away we went. It was a great match.
Now, this has always been debated, and you both touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious to know what you think on this. Many people believe that young men and boys actually do need strong male figures in their life, and the same for young women and girls. Can you tell us, do you think that is needed to be successful or just to have really good relationships in their future? And Brian, I guess we'll start with you.
Well, I totally believe that strong figures, adult figures in a young person's life are a great asset, especially with the complexities of society today, with the drugs and the alcohol, the bullying, the peer pressure that goes along. And when you're kind of young and susceptible to things, you fall into places where they aren't usually pretty good. But when you have a mentor, it's usually somebody that you can bounce things off of that you might not bounce off a parent. And you get a perspective on it. And the biggest thing that I think they realize is that they're not alone, and that they have somebody they can confide in and be able to get some information on.
And Brad, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, and so I mean, I have a really, really great relationship with my mother, but nonetheless, like more strong adult role models definitely couldn't hurt. Like my aunts and uncles, who I'm close with their own, child or children. So this really provided me with someone, as Brian said, someone I could confide in and know that he was there for me whenever I needed him. And yeah, I mean, whether or not like a role model is male or female, or a child or young adult is male or female is irrelevant. But Brian really taught me things, again, that my mom may not have had a lot of knowledge on, or another adult role model may or may not have had. So I think he provided me with a lot of unique perspectives on things that I really never thought about before, that I lacked before knowing him. And he definitely taught me a lot of things that other people didn't.
Now, Brad, you said you started this relationship as a kid. You were 8 years old, which I think is truly amazing. Now that you're a young adult, can you just explain the experience you've had and how would you say it's changed your life?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, again, it gave me a male role model, right? Which I had, been lacking most of my life. My mom never remarried after my father had passed, and she had dated a little bit. But Brian has always been kind of a consistent figure who I've learned a lot from, which has been definitely invaluable to have. So I think it was kind of life-changing in the sense where, like, as time went on, it wasn't like we were having weekly or monthly outings. Like, that being said, it was almost like adding a devoted, like role model who, I could look up to and who I can talk to. And now, as I'm more of an adult, it's less of asking like adolescent, life lessons, and more kind of catching up and asking for more adult advice and whatnot. But it's been consistent. Again, I started when I was 8, and now I'm about to be 24 in a few months. So it's lasted.
Now, Brian, although you were the mentor in this relationship, you've expressed that you also have grown and learned from this relationship. Can you explain how?
Well, some of the things that Bradley's given to me, which I'm eternally grateful for, it expanded my love and compassion, my patience and understanding. He's a great guy, and he was a great kid. And as our experience kept going, it just realized how important he was in my life, as he said, as I've been important in his, and it's been a great journey.
And I also understand that he went to your wedding as well. Can you talk about that too? Because I think that's like really, really cool, and just showed like how personal. It wasn't like just a professional type of thing, but it was like this is almost like a part of your family. So can you speak to that?
Absolutely part of my family. And his mother, who was just stellar, welcomed my wife when she first jumped on board. And my wife was adamant that I keep this relationship going. And Ronnie welcomed her and myself into the family. And the same goes on my side. He was at my wedding. It was a great day. We had a great time. And I now look forward to one day being at his wedding.
Oh, that's so amazing. I love that. Now, Brad, seeing this positive impact that it had on your life, now that you are older, do you see yourself becoming a mentor now or even possibly in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to. It's something that I don't personally think I'm ready for yet. I just started my career and everything, and kind of learning the ropes of young adulthood. So I definitely need to get settled first. But like, truthfully, I've thought about it before, and I definitely plan on getting involved at some point in time. I've slowly gotten more involved with Tuesday's Children as time has gone on, after kind of losing touch in high school and college. So it's definitely something that I view as extremely important, and something that I will definitely look to do when the time is right for me. But I, again, like, can't stress how meaningful this relationship was for me. Tuesday's Children did give a lot back to me in terms of giving me a community full of people that, could only really resonate exactly what I was going through, especially as a kid. So I definitely think it's important to give back, whether that's a mentorship through Tuesday's Children or it's a mentorship through another program. I definitely think it will be important for me one day down the line to make sure that I am making an impact in that way.
Now, Brian, I have a question for you. How would you encourage somebody, like you said you were encouraged to become a mentor? What's something you would say to another adult who you feel like would be a great fit for this, to actually change the life of another young person?
Well, I think the biggest thing you have to realize is that giving back is a major part of life. It isn't about all take, it's about give. And when you get involved in somebody else's life at this level, you realize how truly important it can be to them, for you to be around. And people don't think they can make a difference, they're mistaken. They can definitely make a difference in somebody's life somewhere along the line. And Tuesday's Children's a perfect example of that. If you want to reach out, it's tuesdayschildren.org to get more information. I think it's been my honor and privilege to be involved with these people. They've been nothing but supportive and encouraging the whole way. When I thought I couldn't do something, I could call somebody. They said, "Oh no, don't worry about that. We'll show you the way." So if you don't think you can do this, give it a try. You'd be surprised. It totally. Well, I know Brad says at times I've enriched the quality of his life. I can tell you for sure that he's enriched the quality of mine.
Oh, that's so amazing. Thank you both for joining me. We have on the screen where people can stay in touch. But once again, thank you so much for joining me and sharing this beautiful story.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
That's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.